All right. Today is not a commute day. I'm getting ready to go to the lake. So today was just running around, not on my bike because I had too much stuff to carry. And I don't have a cargo bike, but always good to get in a bike ride. So one of the things I wanted to do is talk about what exactly e-bikes have meant to me and how it's changed how I approach pretty much getting around anywhere. I am fortunate that my commute is done on about 90%, maybe even 95% protected bike lanes like the one I'm on right now. That's not the case everywhere, but I'm fortunate that that is the case for me. I mean, I've made my route. Actually I have two routes in the summertime. I have one way of getting to the studio, and then there's a shorter way in the wintertime, which does take me on a side street, which is I don't love that much, but I mean it's better than being on the main street. So, but the winter route doesn't go through the park area that I'll be going through later on in this ride, and there's too many hills, and the trails are often pretty icy because they don't get a lot of sun. They're shaded. They're in a creek ravine, DeMille Creek ravine, and so they can be not very nice to be on in the winter. So I'll go up about 2/3 of the way there, and then I'll take the rest on streets which are flat and sanded and much sort of easier to be on when it's icy. Last year was my first year of riding in the winter. I did pretty well up until about December the 5th, and then I got COVID and I was sick for 6 weeks, and it took me another 3 weeks to recover. But I did get in quite a few rides. I found out that with my gear that I have, I can do about -12 Celsius and be a little bit colder than that for my body, but my hands and my feet get too cold. I need some different footwear and maybe some heated gloves or something for this winter. We'll see. I did buy some heated gloves, cheap ones from Amazon last year, and they were really crappy. They didn't work at all. So I think you have to buy expensive ones. Otherwise, it's just a waste. They kept each of my thumbs warm, and that was about it. None of my fingers, which are the worst parts because they're on the front of the handlebars and catching all the cold wind. But that's okay. We learned, and of course, I didn't have much of the winter to ride in because I was sick. So that was what it was. So right now, I'm doing, like I said, most of this is on this protected path, but I do have to cross some major roads. So that's what I have learned in my 3 years of cycling and commuting is you just simply can't trust any driver ever. You assume they're going to try to hit you. Or not try to hit you, but that they might, because they're just not seeing you, not paying attention. And it is what it is. Every time I talk about it on Blue Sky, talk about you should all get a bike, an e-bike, and get out and do it. There's a lot of people saying, I just don't feel safe. And if I had to bike on the roads, I think I would probably feel very much the same. My first year of bike commuting to the studio. My studio was out in an industrial park, and so I did have to do a lot of riding on side streets, but side streets in an industrial park are a little bit different than in sort of residential side streets. I would say they're more dangerous. You've got big trucks and equipment and people in pickup trucks who hate cyclists and stuff like that. So it's definitely one of those things that, you know, anybody who's biking just has to learn, unfortunately. And that's why we all need to push for better cycling infrastructure. I'm riding on this path here along Major Road, 91st Street. And this has been here for quite a while, maybe 6 or 7 years. The city is actually doing a bunch of more extension of this bike path in our area. So they've added another whole bunch of cross-connecting paths, which is great, because one of the problems with bike paths and multi-use paths in Edmonton is that there's a lot of them, but they just don't connect. So one of the things by the city, I think, is to start connecting some of these isolated bike path areas, and you can really see that it's starting to make a difference. I've been pretty impressed, actually, especially given the climate. And Alberta is a very, you could call it a petro state, and there's definitely, our government is actively talking about not only stopping additional bike lanes but removing them, which is absolute nuts. The idea that the cycling lanes cost too much and nobody uses them is complete nonsense. There's something like, I don't know, I think it's 100 to 1 the amount spent on roads to bike lanes in this city, probably in the province and probably in the country. And that's a jackass with a pickup truck, and fortunately I get to be away from that noise for most of the ride. This is coming into a nice part along this road. It's kind of loud and smelly, but I'm far enough away now. And this is the green sound barrier they put in about 5 years ago, I think. And they planted these trees and they've grown up, and so it's acting as a sound barrier for the homes on my right. And it's nicer than most of the cinder block or concrete sound barriers they put in along most freeways and major roads in town. So I think it's a great idea. Also on the left, they have naturalized this whole area, so it's not. I mean, it's a drainage holding pond basically, but the entire stretch along here has been naturalized, planted with native plants and bushes and trees, and it's actually really, really great to see this. Like going along here in the early summer, you get hundreds and hundreds of wild roses blooming, and it just smells amazing right now. There's clover all along by the left of me, and it's a lot better than fearing for my life on the small margin of the road over there, smelling exhaust fumes and wondering if I'm going to be hit from behind. So kudos to the city for that. Just now coming up to the White Mud Freeway, which is one of my favorite things to do, is cross that freeway on the overpass here we're coming up to during rush hour. and just watch all of the traffic just parked. Happens quite a bit, not every day, but, and the same with on 91st there. Sometimes, especially when I'm coming home from the studio. Going south, I can blow by 3 or 4 kilometers of basically parked cars, and it makes me laugh every time. I mean, I used to do it. I don't kid myself. I did it for decades. But I guess probably good. Okay, and so here we gotta watch this guy. Is he gonna stop? Yes, that's good. Thank you. Maybe a good time to talk about why I decided to get into cycling again, and specifically e-cycling, e-biking, whatever you want to call it. Back in 2022, I was, let this guy go by. So loud. Roads are so freaking loud. It's something you don't notice when you're driving in a car because it's quiet in your car, most cars anyways. And when you get out in the cycling, it's just so loud and so annoying. Go over here and it's so noisy. So, yes, so why did I get into cycling? Well, I really hadn't ridden. There was a stretch in between like riding to high school in the 80s, the 1980s, and probably about 2001 or 2002, something like that, where I didn't ride at all. And then I did do a commute to work, I think for a whole summer, but it was on my high school 10-speed, so it was not very comfortable. It was not a good bike to begin with, and it was 30 years old by then. So I basically just didn't ride. And then I went through that summer, and I just never got back to it after the winter. It was an old 10-speed, the old sort of racing style with the drop-down handlebars, and very, very much peak 80s bicycle. And is he gonna? Yeah, okay, good. And so I basically just got in my car and drove for another 20 years or so. And in early 2022, I just had this idea. I needed to get in shape. I was approaching 60. It was 50 and 58. Yeah, so I was 58. I just turned 61. And I wanted to get in shape. And I actually had moved to that studio in the industrial park, and I thought, well, one way to get in shape would be to ride there. So I knew I was not going to have the fitness to do that commute without some assist. And so I started looking at e-bikes, and I made the decision to go. I did a lot of research. There are lots of bikes out there. You have to be pretty careful about what you're looking at there's a lot of cheap stuff out there, and I mean, generally cheap stuff isn't a huge deal, but we're dealing with lithium-ion batteries that can and have caused fires. So you don't want cheap lithium batteries, and often the in an $800 e-bike, you're probably getting pretty iffy quality of battery. I just bought a second battery for this bike of mine, and it was $800 itself, not including the bike. So you do definitely want to make sure that you do a lot of research, and if you can buy a brand name, that's always good. You don't have to spend a ton of money. I mean, you can spend $20,000, $30,000 on an e-bike, I think, but I bought mine in 2022 during sort of the late end lockdown or post-lockdown bike shortage, and I think I paid $2,300 Canadian for this bike, and it is it was recently discontinued, but I noticed before it was discontinued, this model was selling for around $1,600 in like 2024. So, $1,600 to $2,000 is probably a reasonable amount for a rear hub motor, which is what I've got. The center hub motors, which are the ones that are on your pedals, they tend to be quite a bit more expensive, and from what I've heard, they're also much more expensive to fix. So, but for me, it wasn't a choice. I just went with a good rated bike, and it had with the rear hub, so I wasn't too concerned about it. The only thing I wanted to make sure that this had a throttle in addition to the pedal assist to help me, if I didn't want to actually pedal, you can just use it like a motorcycle throttle and make yourself go along. But it turns out that the only time I really ever use the throttle is from startup, like when I'm stopped at a light, I'll use it just to get me going a little bit. This bike is about 35 kilos, something like that, 70 pounds, 78 pounds, I think. And so it does take a little bit to get going, and it also has the big 4-inch fat tires. So there's a bit of what they call roll-in resistance. But yeah, that really is about the only time. And then if I come up to like an unexpected hill and I haven't had a chance to change gears, I'll sometimes use that throttle. So here we're at the end of my road cycling for quite a bit of time now, which is fabulous, because I'm tired of all this loud traffic, and I'm sure you are too. So anyways, I decided to get fit, and the one absolutely game-changing thing about an e-bike, and I think a lot of people don't quite understand how e-bikes work. Unlike an e-scooter where you just hit the throttle and you just go, e-bikes actually have what's called pedal assist, which generally gives you different levels of motor usage based on what you set. So not only do you have gears, so this bike has a seven gears. You also have 5 pedal assist levels. So with actually 6. There's 0 is turned off completely, and you go up to 5, which is high pedal assist. And what that does is it gives you just a little bit of extra energy to the back wheel, depending on what level of assist you choose. And that's just such a game changer. When I first started riding this bike, I was using 3 and 4 and even 5 quite a bit, because I was out of shape. I was kind of fat, and hadn't done anything for a long time. I was at a desk job in doing computer stuff for almost 30 years, so I just didn't do much. And so when I decided to get in shape, the idea that I could decide how much I wanted to work was pretty attractive. And it also, one of the big issues with a lot of people in cycling is, it's like, okay, I'm going to commute to my work, and then, oh no, there's a 40, 50 kilometer an hour wind coming at me, and I'm going uphill to get home after 8 hours of work. And so that's pretty off-putting for a lot of people, and it certainly was for me. But the pedal assist takes away that fear almost entirely that you're going to run into a hill that you can't manage, or just wind. I mean, wind is a big deal when you're commuting, because you just never know. You can go in the morning and it's fabulous, and then the wind can change, or it can come up, or whatever, and you just don't have to worry about that. So when you start out, I mean, it is a little bit weird learning how to ride them, I have to admit. The pedals mostly feel like normal, but there's some situations where it can kind of surprise you, because if you're on like loose gravel, and I really learned during my first winter riding last year that you have to be super aware of ice, because if you put any pedal pressure on when you're going over ice, the way the hub motor works is it's sensing your pedal pressure, and then it applies it somehow it also senses the resistance on the road or something, and it will spin the back tire just like crazy fast because there's no traction. So you do have to be really aware of that. When I know I'm coming up to icy areas, I turn on my pedal assist or off, or simply just glide through it and don't pedal at all. Hello. Hi. So there's a few things, and I can do that in gravel, but not so much. But you do have to be aware of it, and it does take a little bit to get used to. And it can kind of take off on you if you're not. So it's always good when you first get an e-bike to go fairly slow and make sure you're understanding what the bike is going to do. So right now we're driving through the south part of Mill Creek Ravine. And this is just, it's such a lovely ride through here. To do it twice a day is just, it's absolutely magical. To do it in the fall, when the colors are going, or in the spring when everything just is starting to bud out and it smells great. It's really wonderful. So I actually, in the summertime, this route is about 4 kilometers longer than my winter route, but I much rather do this than my winter route because I can go through here. And that's a thing you'll find yourself doing, I think, when you're when you start getting into biking, e-biking, is you make excuses to go farther and farther. And that tells you you're on the right track. When I first started out, I was just doing commutes, but I started doing errands to the grocery store, just what I could fit in my backpack. I'll go to the grocery store, the butcher, lots of places. I've even done trips up to my paint supply store, which is about 20 kilometers one way away from where I live. There's a couple paint stores closer, but they don't have the paints that I like, so I've even done that just because I love to ride, and it just changes. I mean, today, like I was saying, I had to do some driving around, which is stressful. I don't like it. I get cranky when I have to drive and when I can't ride my bike. But I mean, sometimes, if you don't have a cargo bike, you don't have any choice. I'm gonna get some panniers for this bike so I can get a little bit more cargo happening, but it's still, a lot of trips to the store can be done. What's happened here? I just got a new mount for this camera, and I'm still learning that it's how tight it needs to be. But what was I saying? Oh yeah, so here we're coming up under this is the White Avenue Bridge. This is actually, I've had a couple of near misses here. The gravel, they've cleaned it up because we get a lot of water erosion coming down here, and the gravel shows up, and it also can be very icy right there too, so it's a very gotta pay attention spot. So we're coming up to the Mill Creek Pool, which is off to the right. I think I can hear some kids screaming over there, having a good time. It's a beautiful day. It's about 24 degrees Celsius right now. It's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, if I was going to my studio, I would go to the left up that hill. But I'm not going to the studio, so we're going to go farther into the river valley. So speaking of commutes, the average commute in Canada, the average car commute in Canada, just a minute here, on your left, is about 11 kilometers, I believe, and I think is about 18 in the US. And 11 kilometers is absolutely doable. I've already gone almost 11 kilometers. And it's to think that I took my entire vehicle off the road for virtually most of the year because I can do this is pretty satisfying. I know it's good for me. It's good for the environment. It's good for my mental health. Incredibly much better than driving, as I was saying. It's good for the city infrastructure. Cars put a lot of wear and tear on the road, especially as dumb giant trucks, which have no business anywhere. And especially when you can do it for most of the year, if not all of the year. I mean, I'm still not going to be... I have an acquaintance who bikes at minus 40, minus 30. He doesn't care. He's got good gear. On your left. And also he only has about a 4 or 5 kilometer bike ride, if I remember right. So he can do that. I have no interest in doing that. It's too cold. So I will drive. During those kind of temperatures. Just one note: if you're thinking about doing winter riding, and I have my bike outside in a little bike garage I built, but it's not insulated or anything like that. It's just basically a cover to keep the rain off it. On your left. But you can't really leave a lithium-ion battery for at least for my particular model, and I'm guessing most e-bikes don't do well below minus 5 Celsius. So I bring mine in every night after use and charge it up in the house. Which again is another reason why you want to make sure that you've got a reputable brand of battery. You don't want to have a fire hazard in your house. Bad enough in your backyard where you might burn down your fence or your deck. So now we are in the North Saskatchewan River Valley proper, just coming up on what is this, Connors Hill. Yeah, this is the Connors Hill Road. So we will go across here. And you'll note, I mean, I'm back out into the sort of the busy area, but I haven't had to be on a road for and so anyways, yeah, so bike, so not having to drive my car to the studio every day, I went from probably $70 in gas. I have a 2012 Hyundai Tucson, and I was spending about $70 a week on gas, and now if I spend $70 a month, it's fairly unusual. The place where I get my prints is way out in the West End. It's a 40 kilometer trip there and back into terrible areas to bike in, and I also can't exactly carry paintings back and forth on my bike, so I don't. So those days I have to take the car, and I don't like that, but it is what it is. Now we're going to cross the North Saskatchewan River here. Trying to decide which way to go. I have two options. I can go left and under the bridge and then go down to the old power plant, or I can go right. On your left. I think we'll go right today. I went left on Sunday. This is by our convention center. We have an elevator out of the river valley for disabled folks and other folks that just don't want to climb the stairs, which is nice when it runs. And we're going to go effort here up this hill. I'm still only on pedal assist 3. 2 years ago, I would have been on 5. I've been building this for quite a while. I don't know if it's a permanent thing. There's a big climbing wall. It's an outdoor climbing wall. Kind of cool. I don't really know what it's doing, but... And then we've got a little e-bike and Segway. Over there is our riverboat, which is runs up and down the river when there's enough water in it, which has been pretty good this year, I think. It hosts parties and things like that. You can just take cruises, and they got a bar in there and have entertainment. This is coming up to the new-ish LRT and pedestrian bridge. On your left. I have become a bell and voice warning kind of person, I think. I find that when people come up on me, when they do ring their bell, and not enough people do, honestly, it's a thing that drives me really crazy. When someone comes up behind me and rings their bell, especially if I'm walking my dog, I don't know exactly where. Are they on my left or on my right? And I don't know which way to go, and I don't know which way to take the dog. So that clue, I think, is helpful. So it's something anybody who rides bike. On your left. So now we're back across the river onto the south side. We're going to go up and over this bridge. On your left. Okay, and then now we are right down in the Matart Conservatory parking lot. Don't like riding through parking lots. People back up and they don't see you, but it's not too busy here today. And I expect, yeah, they're already getting ready for Folkfest. So Edmonton Folkfest, which is one of the better Folkfests in the world, from what I understand, happens down here on this Gallagher Park Hill, which is also the Edmonton Ski Club Hill. And I think that happens sort of mid-August, I'm not sure. But they'll be getting stuff ready for probably several weeks. But we're gonna go up and around. Yeah, they're definitely getting ready. Okay, so now I'm going to shift down, and this is definitely a pedal assist 5. Maybe in the morning it's not, but this afternoon it is. But contrary to popular belief, without me pedaling quite hard, I don't think this would even get, pedal assist 5 would get me up the hill. I've got a couple steeper hills. I have a short, steep hill on my studio commute, which takes a lot of effort, even on 5, and I'm in second gear right now, so. But that's fine. The whole idea is to get some exercise. I guess I'll get back on that point, because I hear all the time from people who, you know, when I post about e-biking, and there are people who just, like, cyclists in particular, who are very kind of elitist, and they don't believe that e-bikes are good. You should, you know, should just use a real bike. Only e-bikes are only good for like old people. And while yes, I am an old person, I do not have any disabilities, but e-bikes are perfect for people of any age. Another hill. We actually gain about, I think it's 300 meters coming out of this river valley. Fortunately, it's fairly gradual. But back to the exercise part of thing, or just what e-bikes are good for. And you know, we talked about the idea that, you know, it helps with the fear of wind and hills and stuff like that for anyone who's, you know, a bit out of shape. But if you're in shape but live in an area with very hilly streets, it still may be too much for you to go acoustic. Acoustic being sort of the fun term that people use. Acoustic guitar, electric guitar, acoustic bike, electric bike, that kind of thing. And so the people who might be fit enough to ride a bike in a certain, on your left, might still not be able to ride comfortably or enjoyably on an acoustic bike. So being able to have that sort of assurance that you get pretty much anywhere you want is great. There are people, I've talked to people who say that they have both because they use them for different things. They use their acoustic bike for enjoyment, and they use their e-bike for commuting. And you know, what a great thing. It gets you off the roads, makes the roads better for those who choose not to. And you're in shape. It's really quite an amazing thing. And of course, on your left, haven't talked about people with disabilities, people with knee problems, people with all sorts of issues. And I've heard from lots of people who on your left, yeah, my bike is actually kind of loud too. It's the big knobbly tires, so I'm complaining about car noise, and this isn't exactly silent, but the difference is still pretty stark. But yeah, so anybody with any kind of mobility problems, e-biking can be just wonderful. You get the exercise. You can get as much exercise as you want, and or as little as you want. It's fairly low impact. Of course, cycling always is compared to running or something like that. And you can even get e-trikes. So I've heard from people who have like balance issues. So regular bikes don't really work for them, but an e-trike is a wonderful mobility enhancer. You can go all sorts of places, and those actually often come with, you know, large shopping baskets in the back or something, so you can actually get out and do some real errands. And so anybody who says that, you know, e-bikes are not a thing that people should be doing should just be quiet. They don't know what they're talking about, and you absolutely shouldn't listen to that kind of talk. On your left. And we're back through underneath White Avenue again. So I think this entire route is about 27 kilometers, something like that. And I'll just remind you that I'm doing this just for fun, because it's a lot of fun. And I think I'm gonna call it, because you don't need to see this go in the other direction. But thanks for watching, listening, and get yourself an e-bike. It'll change your life.